The UHMS Healing Dawn moved slowly through the dark space of the Kepler sector. This huge white ship was as big as a small city with bright red crosses painted all over it. Everyone in the galaxy knew what those red crosses meant. This was a hospital ship that helped anyone who was hurt, no matter which side they fought for. Captain Kim Tae-ho walked across the bridge, looking out at the stars. He was a calm man in his 40s who had spent 20 years in space. Right now he was watching small shuttle ships bring wounded soldiers to his medical bays. Some were human soldiers, others were alien fighters who had been shooting at humans just hours before. It didn't matter to Tai-ho or his crew. "Captain, we have another shuttle coming in," said Chief Medical Officer Park Min-ah. She looked tired after working for 18 straight hours, but her voice was still strong. "These ones are from the Hegemony fleet. Most of them have bad plasma burns." Tae-ho just nodded. The Hegemony were supposed to be Earth's enemies in this war, but hurt people were just hurt people. "How many can we take?" "About 50 more patients. We're getting full, but we'll make room somehow," Park Min-ah replied. She had been a doctor for 15 years and had never turned away anyone who needed help. The Healing Dawn was incredible to see. It was over 1 kilometer long and had medical bays that could hold thousands of patients, 15,000 doctors. Nurses and medical workers from Earth lived on this ship. They had all promised to help anyone who was injured, whether they were friends or enemies. This was an old promise that doctors had been making for hundreds of years. Dr. Lee Sung-min came out of the main surgery room. His medical clothes were covered in blood, and he looked exhausted, but he was smiling a little bit. "Captain, we saved 200 people today. About half were our human soldiers, and half were aliens from different species." "Good work, Doctor," Tae-ho said. "How many more can you handle tonight?" "My team can keep going. We've got plenty of medical supplies, and everyone here knows why we're doing this," Lee Sung-min answered. He was one of the best surgeons on Earth, but he had chosen to work on this hospital ship instead of staying safe at home. The ship had everything needed to help people. There were surgery rooms, recovery areas, places to make artificial body parts, and even special rooms for different types of alien biology. The crew could help almost any kind of living being that got hurt. All around the outside of the ship, bright lights spelled out messages in dozens of languages. They all said the same thing. This was a protected medical vessel that was not part of the fighting. Every space-traveling civilization had agreed long ago that hospital ships should never be attacked. As Captain Tae-ho looked out at space, he felt proud of his crew and their mission. They were saving lives while others were taking them. But he didn't know that in the darkness between the stars, enemy ships were watching his peaceful hospital ship and making terrible plans. War Commander Vextar sat in his command chair, staring at the huge white hospital ship on his screen. He was the leader of the Hegemony 4th Fleet, a group of powerful warships that had been fighting humans for 3 years. Vextar was an alien who looked like a giant insect, with sharp claws and angry red eyes. His second-in-command, Koltek, stood next to him looking worried. Koltek was younger and had never attacked a medical ship before. "Commander, that ship has medical symbols all over it. The galactic laws say we cannot attack hospital ships. Every civilization has agreed to this rule." Vexitar's jaw parts clicked together in anger. "Be quiet. I hate how weak these humans are. They fix our wounded soldiers and send them back to fight us again. This is stupid. But, sir, there are rules about this. If we attack a hospital ship, every other civilization will be angry with us," Koltek said quietly. "I don't care about their rules," Vextar growled. "Today we show these humans what happens when they try to be heroes." On the Healing Dawn, Captain Kim Tae-ho was sitting in his office, looking at reports about all the patients they had helped that day. It had been a good day. They had saved many lives and nobody had died in surgery. He was drinking coffee and thinking about calling his wife back on Earth. Suddenly, loud alarms started ringing throughout the ship. The lights turned red, and a computerized voice announced, "Alert! Alert! Enemy ships detected!" Lieutenant Choi So-young ran to her control station. She was the ship's tactical officer, but her job was usually just to watch for space debris, not enemy fleets. "Captain, multiple Large warships just appeared out of hyperspace, their hegemony dreadnoughts. Taeho quickly walked to the bridge. He wasn't scared because hospital ships were protected by galactic law. Send them our medical protection codes right away. Once they see we're a hospital ship, they'll leave us alone. Choi So-young pressed buttons on her console. Medical codes. Transmitted, sir. They should receive our identification in a few seconds. Taeho waited calmly. Every space captain knew the rules about hospital ships. It was like attacking a school or a church, something that civilized people just didn't do. But then something terrible happened. A bright flash appeared on the ship's hull, and the whole vessel shook violently. Then another flash, and another. The hegemony ships were firing plasma torpedoes at them. "They're attacking us," Choi So-young screamed. "The medical bay has been hit." Throughout the ship, doctors and nurses were thrown to the floor. In the children's medical ward, Dr. Park Min-ah threw herself over a group of young patients to protect them from falling equipment. A piece of metal hit her in the back, but she kept covering the children until the end. Dr. Lee Sung-min was in the surgery room trying to save a wounded hegemony soldier when the explosions started. Instead of running away, he stayed with his patient, trying to finish the operation, even as the ship was being destroyed around him. Captain Kim Tae-ho grabbed the communication system. His last message was heard across the galaxy. "This is the HFY Healing Dawn. We are a protected medical vessel. This is murder." The great hospital ship exploded in a ball of fire and light. 15,000 doctors, nurses, and medical workers died instantly. 8,000 patients from many different species also perished. It was the worst attack on medical personnel in galactic history. The terrible news traveled faster than light across the galaxy. Within just a few hours, every government, every news station, and every military base knew what had happened. The hegemony had destroyed a hospital ship full of doctors and patients. It was the kind of attack that shocked even hardened military officers. President Yoon Jae-wook sat in his chair in the great Senate building on Earth. He was a man who had seen many terrible things during his years in politics, but this left him speechless. Reports kept coming in from the wreckage site, no survivors, 23,000 people dead. Doctors, nurses, patients, even children who were being treated in the medical wards. One by one, alien ambassadors came to speak with him. They all said similar things, but their words felt empty and meaningless. The ambassador from the Kepler Union, a tall, blue-skinned alien, spoke first. "President Yoon, we are very sorry about what happened to your hospital ship. This was a terrible tragedy, but we cannot help you fight the hegemony. They are too powerful, and we cannot risk them attacking our worlds too." The representative from the stellar Commonwealth, who looked like a giant bird, nodded in agreement. "We feel bad for your people who died, but we must stay neutral in this conflict. We cannot take sides." More ambassadors said the same thing. They were sorry, but they wouldn't help. They were scared of the hegemony and didn't want to get involved. Some of these aliens had been Earth's trading partners for decades. Others had signed friendship treaties just last year. Admiral Han Dong-soo, the highest-ranking military officer in Earth's forces, listened to all of this with growing anger. He was a veteran who had fought in space battles for 30 years. He had always believed that civilized species would stand together against evil acts like this. When the last ambassador finished speaking, Admiral Han stood up slowly. His face was hard as stone, and his voice was quiet but filled with cold rage. "So this is how it ends. When humanity needed friends the most, you all turned your backs on us. You abandon us when we are grieving and angry. Fine. Earth will remember who stood with us and who ran away like cowards." The alien ambassadors looked uncomfortable, but none of them changed their minds. They all had reasons why they couldn't. Help, trade agreements with the hegemony, fear of retaliation, or orders from their home governments to stay out of human conflicts. Even the Galactic Medical Consortium, the organization that was supposed to protect doctors and hospitals everywhere, did almost nothing. They wrote a statement saying the attack was wrong and against galactic law, but they didn't send any help or impose any punishments on the hegemony. It was just words on paper. Back on Earth and on human colonies throughout space, something different was happening. Memorial services were held in every city. People gathered to remember the 15,000 medical workers who had died just for trying to help others. Flowers were placed at hospitals and medical schools. Children drew pictures of the doctors and nurses who had been murdered. But in the secret military shipyards hidden throughout the solar system, a different kind of remembrance was beginning. Engineers and factory workers received new orders. The plans they had been using to build hospital ships and medical equipment were suddenly replaced with something else entirely. Admiral Han walked through one of these hidden facilities, watching as peaceful construction projects were transformed into something much more dangerous. Earth had been abandoned by its allies, but humanity had always been good at standing alone when necessary. The galaxy had chosen silence. Now they would learn what happened when you left humanity to grieve alone. Deep beneath the surface of the high moon, in a military base that most people didn't even know existed, Fleet Admiral Song Kyung-ho sat alone in his office. He was one of Earth's most experienced military commanders, a man who had spent 40 years protecting human colonies across the galaxy. But he had never received orders like the ones that just appeared on his secure communication screen. Tutsi. Message came directly from Earth's highest military leaders. It was only 2 sentences long, but Song Kyung-ho read it 3 times to make sure he understood correctly. The Mercy Protocol is now authorized. Show them what happens when humanity's healers die. Song Kyung-ho had heard whispers about the Mercy Protocol during his military training decades ago. It was a secret plan that military leaders hoped would never be needed. The protocol was designed for one specific situation: if anyone ever attacked humanity's medical ships and killed the doctors and nurses who helped everyone, regardless of which side they fought for. He picked up his secure phone and made the first call. Within an hour, similar calls were being made to secret military bases on over 100 different worlds where humans lived. The orders were always the same: activate the Mercy Protocol immediately. Something incredible began happening. Across human space, the huge shipyards that had been building hospital ships for decades suddenly stopped all communication with the outside world. These were massive industrial complexes that employed millions of workers. They built the white medical ships with red crosses that traveled throughout the galaxy, saving lives. For 3 days, nobody could contact these shipyards. No messages went in or out. Transport ships couldn't dock. Even the workers' families couldn't reach them. The facilities had gone completely silent, as if they had vanished from existence. Dr. Bae Hye-jin had spent 20 years designing hospital ships. She was considered one of the best medical ship engineers in human space. Her designs had saved millions of lives. The ships she created could perform surgery on dozens of different alien species and had medical equipment that could cure diseases from across the galaxy. But now she stood in front of a completely different set of blueprints. Instead of medical bays, these new ships had weapon systems. Instead of surgical rooms, they had ammunition storage. Instead of healing equipment, they carried devices designed for destruction. "I can't believe we're doing this," said one of her younger engineers, a woman named Kim Yuri, who had joined the medical ship program because she wanted to help people. Dr. Bae looked at her team with sad but determined eyes. "For 20 years we've built ships that saved lives. We've created vessels that brought hope to the darkest corners of space. But they killed our doctors. They murdered our nurses. They destroyed everything we worked for." She pointed to the new designs on the wall. "These ships won't save lives, they'll end them, and we're going to build them faster and better than anything we've ever created before." Across human space, every colony and space station received requests for materials and workers. Mining operations that had been extracting metals for peaceful construction projects suddenly switched to military production. Factories that made medical equipment began producing weapons instead. The transformation was incredible to watch. Humanity had always been known throughout the galaxy as builders and healers. Human doctors worked on alien worlds. Human engineers built space stations for other species. Human teachers shared knowledge with civilizations across the stars. But now, something ancient and powerful was awakening. For all of human history, there had been one simple rule. If you hurt the people who help others, humanity would make you pay for it. The galaxy was about to learn this lesson the hard way. Fleet Admiral Song Kyung-ho floated in his command suit outside the massive space station hidden behind Saturn's largest moon. What he saw before him was both beautiful and terrifying. 300 warships hung motionless in the darkness of space, but these weren't like any ships that had ever been built before. Every single vessel was painted completely black, not the shiny black of normal military ships, but a flat, dull black that seemed to swallow light itself. When Song Kyung-ho looked at them, it was like looking at holes cut out of space. The ships were there, but they seemed to absorb all the starlight that touched them. Each ship had a name painted in small white letters on its hull. But these weren't the usual military names like Victory or Thunder. Instead, they carried the names of medical ships that the hegemony had destroyed over the past 3 years. There was the Mercy's Hope, the Peaceful Healer, the Children's Guardian, and dozens of others. The largest ship in the fleet was Song Kyung-ho's flagship. It was bigger than anything humanity had ever built for war, a massive dreadnought that could probably destroy an entire enemy fleet by itself. Its name was simple but powerful: Healing Dawn's Vengeance. Song Kyung-ho activated his communication system to talk to his captains. These were all experienced military officers who had volunteered for this mission. Many of them had friends or family members who had died on the hospital ships. "Admiral, this is Captain Nam Gi-soo, reporting from the stealth destroyer, Dr. Park." "Minna," came a voice over the radio. Nam Gi-soo had been Dr. Park's personal friend and had attended her wedding 5 years ago. "All systems are working perfectly. Our cloaking technology is active. Enemy sensors won't be able to detect us." Another voice joined the conversation. "This is Commander Lim Yu-jin on the heavy cruiser, Dr. Lee Sung-min. Our quantum torpedoes are loaded and ready to fire. We've locked onto the coordinates of every major hegemony military base in this sector." Song Kyung-ho looked at the tactical display showing all 300 ships. Each one was equipped with technology that had never been used in warfare before. The cloaking systems made them completely invisible to enemy sensors. The quantum torpedoes could destroy targets at the molecular level, leaving no wreckage behind. The armor was designed to absorb enemy fire and redirect it back at the attackers. "All ships, this is Admiral Song," he announced. "In 10 minutes, we begin our journey into hegemony space. We are not going there to conquer territory or capture resources. We are going there for justice. They killed our doctors. They murdered our nurses. They destroyed hospital ships full of patients who trusted us to keep them safe." The fleet began to move, slowly at first, then picking up speed. But something strange happened. As soon as the ships started moving, they seemed to fade away. The cloaking technology made them invisible, not just to sensors but to the naked eye as well. Within minutes, the 300 ships had completely disappeared. Later, enemy intelligence officers would call this formation the Ghost Fleet, because they moved through space like spirits of the dead. They could appear anywhere without warning, strike with devastating force and vanish again before anyone could fight back. But this was only the beginning. Back in the hidden shipyards throughout human space, construction was continuing around the clock. More ships were being built, bigger. Weapons were being designed. The 300 ships of the Ghost Fleet were just the first wave of humanity's response. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you made humans truly angry. War Commander Zethval was having his morning meal when the urgent message came through. He was one of the hegemony's most experienced officers, in charge of defending their territory in the Outer Rim. His communication officer burst into his private quarters, looking terrified. "Sir, we've lost contact with Kellyan." "Prime," the young officer stammered. Zethval put down his food and stared at his subordinate. Kellyan Prime was one of their strongest fortresses, a military base built inside a small moon that housed 50,000 hegemony warriors. It had enough weapons to destroy an entire enemy fleet and shields that could withstand attacks from 100 ships. "What do you mean, lost contact? Are their communications broken?" Zethval asked. "No, sir. It's worse than that. The base is gone. Completely gone. There's nothing there anymore." Zethval rushed to his command center and looked at the tactical display. Where Kellyan Prime should have been, there was just empty space. Not even debris or wreckage remained. It was as if 50,000 warriors and their massive fortress had simply been erased from existence. "This is impossible," Zethval muttered. "What kind of weapon could do this?" But this was just the beginning. Over the next few days, reports came in from across hegemony territory. Military outposts that had been reporting normally suddenly went silent. When scout ships went to investigate, they found nothing. No bases, no soldiers, no equipment. Just empty space where thriving military installations had been. Patrol fleets that were supposed to check in every few hours simply disappeared. One moment they were sending routine status reports. The next moment, they were gone. No distress calls, no signs of battle, no escape pods. Entire squadrons of warships vanished as if they had never existed. Supply convoys traveling between hegemony worlds started disappearing during their hyperspace jumps. These were heavily guarded transport fleets carrying food, weapons, and fuel to military bases. They would enter hyperspace at one location and never arrive at their destination. Search teams couldn't even find where the attacks had happened. The Ghost Fleet was hunting methodically through hegemony space, but they moved like shadows. Captain Namgisu led the stealth destroyer squadrons that specialized in eliminating communication systems. His ships would appear near hegemony communication relays, destroy them with precision strikes, then vanish again. This left enemy forces isolated and unable to call for help or coordinate their defenses. Commander Lim Yujin commanded the heavy cruisers and battleships that attacked the larger targets. Her ships carried quantum torpedoes, weapons that didn't just explode and destroy things. Instead, they broke apart matter at the atomic level, causing targets to simply cease to exist. There was no explosion, no fire, no wreckage. One moment, a fortress was there. The next moment, there was empty space. Admiral Song Kyung-ho coordinated everything from his flagship, the Healing Dawn's Vengeance. He had a detailed list of every hegemony military installation, every supply depot, every patrol route. His staff had spent months planning this campaign, identifying targets and creating attack schedules. Each time they destroyed a target, Admiral Song would make a small ceremony on his ship. He would read the names of the doctors and nurses who had died on the Healing Dawn and dedicate the attack to their memory. The crew would observe a moment of silence, then continue with their mission. The hegemony military leadership was beginning to panic. They had never faced an enemy like this before. Their opponents seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. They could strike any target at any time, but they couldn't be detected, tracked, or fought. It was like fighting ghosts, which is exactly what the human fleet wanted them to think. The hegemony homeworld of Thekmora had never looked more dangerous. Every single warship that the hegemony still had was gathered around their home planet like a protective shell. There were over 2,000 vessels, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and fighter squadrons. It was the largest defensive fleet ever assembled in galactic history. War Commander Vextar stood on the bridge of his massive flagship, looking out at his assembled forces. He was the same alien who had ordered the attack on the hospital ship months ago. Now he was in charge of defending his entire civilization from humanity's revenge. "Today we end this human nonsense," Vextar announced to his officers. His insect-like face showed no fear, only anger. "They think they can intimidate us by destroying a few outposts. When they arrive here, we'll crush them and show the galaxy that the hegemony cannot be defeated." His second-in-command looked worried. "Sir, our scouts report that we still can't detect the human fleet. We don't know where they are or when they'll attack." "It doesn't matter," Vextar replied confidently. "They'll have to show themselves when they attack our homeworld. And when they do, we'll be ready for them." The hegemony had positioned their ships in perfect defensive formations. The largest battleships formed the outer ring, with smaller vessels filling the spaces between them. Fighter squadrons patrolled constantly, ready to swarm any enemy that appeared. Planetary defense systems on Thekmora itself were powered up and ready to fire, but when the Ghost Fleet arrived, it wasn't like any battle the hegemony had ever seen before. There was no warning. No advanced scouts, no long-range sensors detecting incoming ships. One moment, empty space surrounded the defensive fleet. The next moment, 300 black warships simply appeared, as if they had materialized out of nothing. Admiral Song. Kyung-ho's flagship, the Healing Dawn's Vengeance, was larger than any ship the hegemony had ever built. Around it, the other vessels of the Ghost Fleet took their positions with military precision. They moved like a pack of hunters surrounding their prey. "All ships, this is Admiral Song," came the calm voice over the human fleet's communication system. "Remember why we're here. For Dr. Park Min-ah, for Dr. Lee Sung-min, for Captain Kim Tae-ho, for all the healers who died because they chose to help instead of harm." The battle began immediately, but it was unlike anything anyone had ever witnessed. The hegemony ships opened fire first, sending thousands of plasma cannons blasts toward the human fleet. But something impossible happened. Many of the human ships seemed to flicker in and out of existence. The plasma blasts passed right through them, as if they weren't really there. The human response was devastating. Quantum torpedoes launched from the Ghost Fleet didn't just damage the hegemony ships, they made them disappear entirely. One moment, a massive battleship would be firing all its weapons. The next moment there would be empty space where it had been. Commander Lim Yu-jin's heavy cruisers moved through the hegemony formation like sharks through a school of fish. Each quantum torpedo hit caused an enemy ship to simply cease existing at the atomic level. There were no explosions, no debris fields, just empty space. Captain Nam Gi-soo's stealth destroyers appeared and disappeared throughout the battle, striking at communication ships and command vessels. The hegemony forces quickly lost the ability to coordinate their defense. Within 6 minutes, it was over. 2,000 hegemony warships had been reduced to fewer than 50 vessels, and most of those were too damaged to fight. Vextar's flagship was the last ship standing, but it wasn't destroyed like the others. Instead, powerful tractor beams from the Healing Dawn's Vengeance grabbed the crippled vessel and pulled it into the human ship's massive docking bay. Vextar would survive just long enough to understand exactly what he had done when he ordered the attack on the hospital ship. Across hundreds of worlds that had once belonged to the hegemony, every television screen, computer monitor, and communication device suddenly activated at the same time. People stopped what they were doing as the same message began playing everywhere, in homes, offices, military bases, and even on spacecraft traveling between planets. The transmission began with a sight that shocked everyone who saw it. War Commander Vextar, the proud alien warrior who had ordered the attack on the hospital ship, sat in a simple metal chair. He looked completely broken. His once fierce appearance now showed fear and defeat. His insect-like features were bruised, and his proud military uniform was torn and dirty. In a weak voice, Vextar began to read from a piece of paper. His words were heard by billions of people across the galaxy. "I am War Commander Vextar of the former hegemony 4th Fleet. I ordered the unprovoked attack on the human hospital ship, Healing Dawn. I commanded my forces to fire on a protected medical vessel carrying doctors, nurses, and patients." He paused, his voice shaking. "This attack violated every law of civilized warfare. I murdered 15,000 medical personnel and 8,000 patients who were under the protection of galactic medical laws. I ordered this attack because I thought human compassion was weakness. I was wrong." The camera stayed focused on Vextar as he continued his confession. "The doctors on that ship had saved the lives of my own people. They healed hegemony soldiers and sent them home to their families. In return for their mercy, I gave them death. I take full responsibility for this crime." What happened next was swift but witnessed by the entire galaxy. Vextar's execution was carried out immediately, broadcast, live so that everyone could see that justice had been served. Then the scene changed. Admiral Song Kyung-ho appeared on screen, standing on the bridge of his massive flagship. His face showed no emotion. It was like looking at a statue carved from stone. Behind him, through the large windows of the ship, viewers could see the entire Ghost Fleet. 300 black warships hung in space like dark shadows against the stars. "I am Fleet Admiral Song Kyung-ho of the Terran Defense Forces," he began, his voice calm but carrying the weight of absolute authority. 3 months ago, the hegemony attacked our healers. They murdered doctors and nurses who sought only to save lives, regardless of which species they belonged to. Today, the hegemony ceases to exist as a military power. The camera angle changed to show the space around the hegemony homeworld. Where once a mighty fleet of 2,000 warships had defended their civilization, now there were only scattered pieces of wreckage floating in the darkness. Admiral Song continued speaking. Any military personnel who served the hegemony cause, supported their actions, or flew their banner have been judged. We have marked the survivors so they will always remember what happens when humanity's mercy is repaid with murder. The broadcast showed images of the few hegemony survivors. Each one had a red cross symbol burned into their forehead, the same symbol that had marked the hospital ships as protected medical vessels. It was a mark they would carry for the rest of their lives, ensuring that everyone they met would know what they had done. However, Admiral Song's voice became slightly softer. We recognize that many people lived under hegemony rule without choosing to be part of their military crimes. For those who wish to start over, who reject the path of attacking healers and medical personnel, we offer a different choice. The screen displayed coordinates, the locations of refugee camps that humanity had established on neutral worlds. These camps are open to anyone who abandons the hegemony cause and pledges to respect medical neutrality. You will be fed, housed, and helped to build new lives. The transmission ended with Admiral Song looking directly into the camera. The Ghost Fleet will remain on patrol. We will continue to protect medical personnel throughout the galaxy, and we will respond to any future attacks on healers with the same absolute justice we have delivered today. The screens went dark, but the message was clear to everyone in the galaxy. Humanity's doctors and nurses were now under the protection of the most powerful military force anyone had ever seen. 1 year had passed since the Ghost Fleet had destroyed the hegemony, and Earth was ready to return to what it did best, healing and helping others. In the massive orbital shipyards above Earth, the largest hospital ship ever built was preparing for its first mission. The UHMS New Dawn was incredible to see. It was 10 times bigger than the original Healing Dawn that had been destroyed. The ship was so large that it looked like a floating city made of white metal and glass. Red crosses covered its hull, visible from thousands of kilometers away. Inside there was room for 100,000 doctors, nurses, and medical staff from Earth and friendly alien worlds. The ship could treat 500,000 patients at the same time. It had medical bays designed for every known species in the RDB galaxy, surgery rooms that could handle the most complex operations, and research laboratories where new medicines could be developed. There were even special areas for treating diseases that hadn't been discovered yet. On the day of the launch ceremony, representatives from hundreds of different worlds came to Earth. These were the same alien ambassadors who had abandoned humanity a year ago when the original hospital ship was destroyed. Now they were all competing with each other to show how much they supported human medical missions. The ceremony took place in a huge space station near Earth. Fleet Admiral Song Kyung-ho, the man who had led the Ghost Fleet to victory, stood at the podium to address the gathering. He looked the same as always, calm, serious, and completely in control. "Friends from across the galaxy," he began, his voice being broadcast to billions of people on hundreds of worlds. "Today we launch a new chapter in galactic medical care. The New Dawn represents humanity's commitment to healing, but it also represents something else. Our promise that what happened to the original Healing Dawn will never happen again." The alien representatives sat quietly, remembering how they had refused to help Earth in its darkest hour. "We are healers by choice," Admiral Song continued. "Every human doctor, nurse, and medical worker volunteers to help others, regardless of species, politics, or past conflicts. This is who we are. It's in our nature to help those who are suffering." He paused and looked directly at the alien. "Ambassadors. But we are also destroyers by necessity. The Mercy Protocol remains in effect throughout the galaxy. Anyone who touches our medical ships, anyone who harms our healers, will discover why humanity's greatest strength has always been our ability to show both infinite compassion and absolute vengeance." The New Dawn began moving slowly away from Earth's orbital yards, but it wasn't traveling alone. 12 different alien fleets surrounded the massive hospital ship, not just 1 or 2 escort vessels, but entire battle fleets from different civilizations. These weren't there to protect the new dawn from enemies. Everyone in the galaxy knew that attacking a human medical ship would bring the ghost fleet down on them like a force of nature. Instead, the escort fleets were there to make sure that everyone understood the new reality. Human healers were under the protection of the most powerful military alliance in galactic history. The Kelton Union, which had refused to help Earth a year ago, now provided 50 warships to escort human medical missions. The Stellar Commonwealth, which had claimed neutrality when the Healing Dawn was destroyed, now offered their most advanced battle cruisers to protect human doctors. As the New Dawn and its massive escort fleet jumped into hyperspace to begin their mission on the frontier worlds, something else was happening in the depths of space. The Ghost Fleet was still out there, patrolling the darkness between stars. 300 black warships moved silently through space, invisible to sensors, ready to appear anywhere in the galaxy at a moment's notice. They were a promise, written in the stars themselves. A promise that humanity's healers would never again die alone and unavenged. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Human medical ships now traveled under the protection of the most feared military force anyone had ever seen. And in hospitals and medical schools across hundreds of worlds, young people of every species learned the new rule that governed galactic civilization. You could fight humans, you could compete with humans, you could even declare war on humans, but you never, ever touch their doctors.